Welcome to The Explainer. You know, history is full of incredible stories, but today we're diving into what might be one of the most audacious, most genius prison breaks of all time.
So, picture this. You're trapped deep in the heart of an enemy empire. Your jailer, the emperor himself. Sounds impossible, right? Well, that's exactly the situation Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj found himself in back in 1666. And how he got out? Well, that's the stuff of legend. Let's get into it.
Okay, so our story actually starts not with swords and cannons, but with a promise. It's all about this really complex relationship, a bond of trust, between two incredibly powerful men. So, it's 1665. After a lot of back and forth, a lot of conflict, Shivaji signs this thing called the Treaty of Purandar with a top Mughal general, Mirza Raja Jai Singh. But here's the catch. As part of the deal, Shivaji has to go visit Emperor Aurangzeb's court in Agra. We're talking a high-stakes mission, deep in enemy territory. And you know what's really fascinating here is that it wasn't just one-sided. We've got accounts from pretty much everyone involved. Mughals, Rajputs, Marathas, and they all say the same thing. Shivaji really trusted Jai Singh, almost like a father figure. And that personal guarantee of safety, that was the only reason he agreed to go on this incredibly risky trip.
Yeah, this was way more than just politics. It was personal. Jai Singh basically put his family's entire honor on the line for Shivaji's safety. He even sent his own son, Ram Singh, to Agra to look out for him. That's how serious this guarantee was.
So with that promise in place, let's head to the Grand Court of Emperor Aurangzeb, because this is where everything goes wrong. This is where that sacred promise gets completely shattered.
All right, so on May 12, 1666, Shivaji and his young son Sambhaji arrive at the Diwani Khas. Now that's the hall of private audience. They're expecting, a reception fit for a king who came in peace, just like they were promised.
And you have to understand, the Diwani Khas wasn't just some big room. In the super strict, hierarchical world of the Mughal court, your physical place in that hall, where you were told to stand, said everything. It was a direct reflection of your rank, your importance, your value in the eyes of the emperor.
But instead of getting a place of honor, Shivaji gets shoved into the third row, basically with a bunch of lower-ranking officers. This was no mistake. It was a deliberate, public slap in the face designed to humiliate him and show him who was boss. And right then and there, you can imagine something just snapped. For Shivaji, this wasn't just an insult. It was a message, loud and clear, that he would never be a subordinate. He was a sovereign king, and this proved it. Feeling betrayed, and who wouldn't be, Shivaji does something absolutely unheard of. He gets furious, and he storms out of the court, right in front of everyone. Nobody had ever done that before. You can just imagine the silence in the room. Aurangzeb was completely floored. In his world, that kind of defiance was, well, it was impossible. He thought he was putting a rival in his place, but what he really did was create an enemy for life. Well, Aurangzeb's reaction was fast and predictable. Shivaji and his son were immediately placed under heavy house arrest. That promise of safety, gone. The gilded cage they were in had just turned into a very real prison. The invitation, just as everyone had warned him, had been a trap from the very beginning. So now he's trapped, hundreds of miles from home, surrounded by enemies. Fighting his way out? No chance. He knew he'd have to use his wits. He was going to have to think his way out of this one. And what a plan it was. First, he pretends to be incredibly sick, so sick he can't leave his room. Then he starts this new daily ritual, supposedly to pray for his recovery. He begins sending out these huge baskets, just massive, filled to the brim with sweets and fruits for all the local holy men and temples.
Now this is the really brilliant part. It's a four-step deception. First, fake the illness. That gives him an excuse to stay inside and to make these religious offerings. Second, send out the baskets every single day. Make it a routine. Third, and this is crucial, wait for the guards to get bored. After a few weeks of seeing these giant sweet baskets go out, they stop checking them so carefully. It just becomes part of the background noise. And finally, step 4, the switch. He was playing the long game, a patient, psychological strategy. It was all about making the guards so complacent that the extraordinary just felt normal.
Then, one evening, the plan goes into motion. Shivaji and his young son Sambhaji climb into 2 of those giant baskets. Their followers just pick them up and carry them right out the front door, straight past the guards who barely give them a second look. By the time anyone noticed how strangely quiet the house was, that the bird had flown, as one of the Mughal officials later wrote, Shivaji was long gone. He had a whole day's head start.
You can imagine Aurangzeb's reaction. He was absolutely livid. He punished the guards, he stripped Ram Singh, the guy who was supposed to be guaranteeing Shivaji's safety, of his rank. He sent search parties out in every single direction. But it was no use. Shivaji was gone. He had outsmarted the most powerful man in the entire subcontinent.
But look, getting out of the house was just step one. The escape was only the beginning. Now came the really hard part. A grueling, 3-month journey home across a continent that was completely hostile territory.
And his route home was another stroke of genius. Instead of making a beeline for the Deccan, the direct route south, he did the exact opposite. He went north to Mathura, then east to Benares, all the way to Gaya and Puri, before finally looping back southwest. I mean, think about it. While all the Mughal search parties were racing down the main road south, he was heading in the complete opposite direction, basically melting into the crowd.
And to pull this off, he had to completely change his appearance. He shaved his beard, his mustache, and disguised himself as a ghost Savi, a wandering holy man. He traveled on foot, living off the land, his royal identity buried under a thin layer of sacred ash.
And the journey was full of close calls, just one nerve-wracking moment after another. In Mathura, he had to leave his exhausted son behind with allies, which must have been heartbreaking. Near Gaya, he was actually arrested by a local official, a guy named Ali Kuli, and had to bribe him with a diamond to get away. Then, in another marketplace, a horse dealer almost recognized him, wondering why a poor ascetic was carrying a purse full of gold coins. Any one of these moments could have been the end. One wrong move, and it was all over.
Finally, on November 20th, 1666, this travel-worn holy man arrives at Raigad Fort. He walks up to his mother, Jizabai, and falls at her feet. And she knew. She recognized her son. He was finally home. And the news, wow, it just exploded across the country. As the word spread, huge celebrations erupted all over the Deccan. Forts were firing their cannons. It was a massive event.
So why is this one story, this one escape, so important in the grand scheme of things? Well, because it wasn't just about one man getting away. This event literally changed the balance of power in India.
Just look at the contrast here. For Aurangzeb, this was a massive public humiliation that would haunt him for the rest of his life. It exposed huge weaknesses in his security, and he became obsessed with recapturing Shivaji, an obsession that would cost his empire dearly. But for Shivaji, his reputation soared. He was now hailed as a master strategist. He went from being a regional thorn in the empire's side to a true sovereign king, an unshakable symbol of resistance. It revitalized the entire Maratha cause.
So, could one man's daring escape really be the beginning of the end for an empire? Well, Shivaji's great escape from Agra proved something powerful. It proved that cleverness, courage, and ingenuity could win out over sheer brute force. It was this incredible act of defiance that sent a clear message. The mighty Mughal Empire was not invincible. And that's a lesson that would echo through the pages of Indian history for centuries.